Hello, this is James Faulkner here, Red Hat Technical Marketing, and today we're going to showcase a demo of Quarkus applications running on Azure App Service. This will be a very familiar application to many of you. It's a simple application with a graphical front end and a reactive RESTful API on the back end. And then we have a couple of features taking advantage of in Quarkus for separating the dev mode versus production mode. One side using Quarkus Dev Services, which is new in Quarkus 2, and one side for production using the Azure Postgres database. So let's get into it. Okay, here we are in the Azure portal, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new resource. Web apps are where we create Java web apps. I'm going to use a new web app plus database experience. It's going to create both a web app as well as the database. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in a new resource group. I'll give it an appropriate name, microsweeper-demo. Give it a name, put it in the region I'm currently in. And you can change the different databases that you want to use. We'll just use the default, which is Postgres, I believe, and a runtime stack of Java 11 for this Quarkus application. So this is going to create both a web server as well as a Postgres database. So I'll click Review and Create, and you can see the details here, including the app service plan, the app service details, as well as the database details. You can see the username and password there, which we'll be using later on when we want to connect to this database. So go ahead and click Create, and we'll wait for that to finish. Okay, now that that's done, it's created both my app service application, which is empty at the moment, plus my database. You can see that if we visit the resource group where these things have been created. You can see down below there, App Service Plan, App Service, and App Service, and Azure Database. So if we go into the database, one important thing we need to do is actually open it up for connections. Although it is running, no one can talk to it. So in the networking tab here, we can change the firewall rules. You can add custom IPs, or you can just allow access to any apps, any service running on Azure to access this. We'll go ahead and do that just to make it easy, because our app service is going to talk to this in a moment. If we click on the actual URL for the app, you can see it's up and running, but there's nothing there because it's just a basic JVM with no application running. So let's go ahead and add our application. We could just build and deploy it manually, but I'm going to use GitHub. And I'm actually going to have App Service create a GitHub action in my application's source code in my Git repository. You can see what the workflow file is going to look like here, a GitHub Action Workflow file. We're going to have to change it not quite a bit, just one line to make it build an Uber application. But I'll click Accept here. If you haven't authenticated to GitHub, it'll send you through that. But now it's not only authenticated to GitHub, but it's actually added, as you can see, a new GitHub Actions workflow file to my repository. And it's also kicked off the workflow actions because that's its job, just to trigger on push. So when that push happened, it kicked it off. But we know it's not going to work because by default, Quarkus does not build Uber jars, which is what the app service Java runtime is expecting. So we'll go here and edit directly on GitHub our workflow actions, our workflow file, and just add the command line switches in the Maven build step of this thing to build a fat jar, Uber jar. Just commit that directly to the repository. That's going to go ahead and trigger yet another build. This one we're going to watch and wait for. So this one you can see not only how the build and deploy are related, whereas deploy waits for build to finish. You can also watch and look at log files and look at output. It did work. It did deploy to app service just now. And if we go into the log stream within our app service, you can see familiar output from our Quarkus application, which is now running in that Java runtime that we deployed earlier. So if we then click on the URL here, we'll be able to access the actual application, which many of you will recognize from 1992. It's Minesweeper from Windows. Actually came way before that, but it was released with Windows 3.1. We are on a Windows 95 desktop, so we're a little bit ahead of that. But as you can see, we're playing the game, and on the back end, the Quarkus is keeping score for us. And so as we continue to play the game, the scores go up and get recorded in the Postgres database, which we've used for this application. Good times with Minesweeper. So another thing you might want to do is know how many times you're playing Minesweeper to make sure you're not wasting time. So Azure Application Insights can provide this pretty much out of the box with Quarkus applications. You simply turn it on, you click the big blue button, and what this is going to do is instrument the running JVM and look for usage of the micrometer API. It's a very common metrics API that Quarkus has support for. So when those APIs are called, the backend intercepts that content and sends it to App Insights, and then you can draw interesting conclusions about your applications, and you can also gain access to those metrics that are being exposed, both the standard metrics from like the VM or the container as well as Java, as well as custom metrics. So now that I've clicked the button, my app is now connected to Application Insights, and it's going to start sending that telemetry back to Application Insights. This is not a full-fledged session on Insights, but you can see some of the basic metrics that you get out of the box for free around number of failed requests and availability, and you can set alerts and thresholds and things like that. But you can also add some custom metrics to your application. So you can see here in my application on my one of my endpoints, I have created a micrometer timer. We're timing, we want to see how long it takes to add a score every time someone plays. So we've wrapped this with a micrometer timer, our reactive API for adding a new score, and we'll go ahead and exercise the application a few times to kind of generate some of that content. So in the on the metrics page here, this is where you access those metrics under Application Insights. So before I can do that, I need to exercise the app. So I'll go ahead and play a number of times. I'm pretty bad at this game. Occasionally I do kind of well, but generally it's more than, no more than 5 or 6 clicks and I'm done. So let's clear that to erase my bad scores. But let's go back to metrics and check it out. So on this Application Insights dashboard, now you can see all the metrics you get, including our new scoreboard timer, custom metric that we added. So that applies to any type of metric that you might want to add: timers, counters, gauges, etc., etc. And finally, let's revisit the database integration here. So you may recall in our application's source code in the application.properties file, we had a number of variables referring to DB user, DB pass, DB host. Where the heck are those coming from? So when we set up our database with App Service, it automatically created those environment variables. If I head over to the configuration tab and I look under application settings, I can see those 4 have been created and they're hidden. You can unhide them and you can copy and paste them. And these are the ones that automatically get injected into the running environment for the application. That's how Quarkus can pick that up from the environment variable. So let's go ahead and have a look inside the database. We'll open up our PowerShell using this handy dandy PSQL connection string that is provided as part of Azure Postgres database. We'll just go ahead and do some quick surgery to change the password and the DB name. And now we're connected to our database and we can do the same SQL commands you all learned in school. SQL select star from score. You can see all the names there, which are exactly the same as what you see in the application. Puddle Thumb didn't do very good here, so let's go ahead and delete that score. It's pretty embarrassing for them. So go ahead and delete Puddle Thumb's score, where time equals 6, and then if we simply go back to our application and reload, you can see Puddle Thumb is no longer in the annals of Minesweeper history, so good for them. So I hope you enjoyed this demo showcasing Quarkus on Azure App Service and its integrations, and we'll see you around for more. Thank you.